Hello and welcome to what should be a quick overview of how to make a note card in NoodleTools. So you're going to be making note cards just to keep track of information or maybe summarizing an idea or summarizing an article. Maybe there's an image that you want to use in a PowerPoint presentation or original thinking that you want to document. It does not matter. There's a million reasons why you might make a note card, but you're basically trying to stay organized. And this whole project in NoodleTools of making note cards just comes from a really old-fashioned way of doing things where back in the day we would use index cards to keep track of our sources, and you might label it source 1, and then you would create note cards for any piece of information you wanted to pull from that source, and that would be card 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, etc. This is just a digital version of that. So you can see all my sources here. And if I'm going to be making note cards, I definitely want to pull up that source because you should be using that source. So I've went ahead and pulled up two sources here. So we're going to go ahead and click Note Cards over here on the left. And the first thing that opens up is a tabletop view. And as you can see here, I've messed around quite a bit with my cards, and I have several cards made. When you are ready to make a card, you're going to click New Note Card. And you want to give that note card a title. So I'm actually going to go back to my note cards here real quick just to show you that there's a variety of titles that you could use. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. Some people give it a summative title where it just kind of represents what the card is about. Okay, percentage of year-round schools. Percentage of year-round schools versus schools that use a traditional school calendar is what the data on that card represents. Maybe I've got a pro of year-round school, and I'm going to call it pro of year-round school 1, 2, 3, 4, and every card that's a pro, I'm going to just give it that plus a number. Here's another example of that. Problems with summer break 1, problems with summer break 2, so on and so forth. You also could call it by the title of the source. So some students will say, look, I want 5. I've got 5 cards from this University of Texas Arlington online source, and this is, of course, is Texas number 3, but I'm going to have Texas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And this one does that same way. Maybe you've got an image or an infographic, and you want to label it, hey, this is just an image. Or maybe it's just an idea, that it's not actually coming from a specific source, or maybe it is from a specific source. I'm going to double click to open this here, in which case I would pick the source that it represents, but maybe I've just got an idea and I want to type my ideas here to create a note card for that idea. Okay, so when you get into the note card, I'm just going to start a new note card here. I'm just going to call this summary of, and what is this article here? Year-round education is the article, and it is from Rhode Island, University of Rhode Island. Kind of a long title for a card, that's okay. And I know, of course, that that's from this source here, my University of Rhode Island. And here are the components of a note card. The first thing is that you might have a direct quotation. You don't have to have a direct quotation. We're going to ask you to come up with a specific number of direct quotations. Let's just say here I want the different types of year-round school. All right, so I've got a direct quote. An important thing to note here is that you want a new note card for each direct quote. What I don't want to do is hit enter a couple times and go grab another direct quote from this article, right? I do not want to do that. If I wanted a separate direct quote, I would create a separate card. The next thing that you might do with your note card is you summarize it, right? What is going on with this quote? And again, this quote could be longer, but this just shows the different splits that can occur between time in school and time on break for year-round school calendars. That's my summary of this particular card. And again, I might have more than one card that is showing this, but this goes with this particular quote. And then your original thinking. Well, how does this fit in? And you might not be ready for this yet. It depends on where you're at in your project. But this could be how you're going to work it into your paper. Maybe you're making a presentation, and this is where it's going to go in the presentation. Or, this supports the counterclaim. I don't know, something like that, right? Would be your original ideas. Lastly, don't forget page number. If you're dealing with a document that has page numbers, and this one does, you want to put the page that you got this from. This is important because when you go to cite this source later in a paper or presentation or speech or whatever, when you make your citation, you need the page number. So definitely don't forget that step, because otherwise you're going to be going back later and trying to identify the page number. Once you've got this card finished, you're going to save it. If you ever need to go back to that card, you're just going to double click it. And once you've got this card, you are free to move it around on this tabletop. If that card ever goes missing, and this does happen sometimes, this is a big tabletop. So as you can see here, there's some sidebars. So you may have to kind of scroll around to find the card. And I guess they're just giving you lots of space to work with. But now we've got this source here, okay? And I could be done with it, but if you want to be truly organized, there's a few other things that you could do. One, you could add it to a pile. Well, since this is a summary of the article, or at least that's what my title, I know I did other things in it, I could add it to the summary pile, right? If I do that, it's going to go over here. If I click this, I'm going to move this out of the way here. You can see I've got several note cards in here that are all summaries, okay? For right now, I'm going to move this out, and we'll call it not a summary. I can also link this source, okay? Actually, because I put the source in there, it already linked it. But let's say this counter-argument one does not have a source. Maybe I want to add a source to it. I can link it. That only works, by the way, if you correctly put a permalink in as your source. Otherwise, it's not going to link correctly. You could also apply a tag to it. So just like on social media, hashtags help you find information and help you kind of categorize it. So this would be, hey, I don't want to put it in a pile. I don't want to kind of hide it in this list of summaries, but I do want to make it known that it's a summary, so I might tag it as a summary. I also know that this is talking about the calendar options, whether it's a 60-40 split or 70-40 split or whatever, so I'm going to tag it as calendar. You can do as many tags as you want. You can also create a new tag, type it in there. If I've searched for it, it doesn't come up with it, so I'm going to create a tag called budget. This doesn't deal with budget, so I'm going to uncheck that. You can also apply what's called a cue. These cues are meant for you and maybe potentially your teacher to kind of look at this. So for the cue, you've got needs further research. Hey, this is a good place, but what is a 60-40 split? What is a 70? Like, what do those even mean? I know that I need to look more up there. Maybe need help with it. Maybe it's incomplete. Maybe it's original thinking, and that's what this one is over here. This is not actually tied to a source. It's actually just my thinking about something, and so I give it a cue, right? I call it original thinking, and then I've got a little light bulb there. Maybe this one, untitled. This one's obviously not finished, so I'm going to call it incomplete, and you can see these little icons appear here to indicate the cue on the card. You can also apply a color to it. You can see I've already got some color-coded cards here. Obviously, these probably are both prose. You could also color-code the sources. So maybe all of my that are the Texas, now there's only 12 colors, or I'm sorry, 9 colors. So you're kind of limited there, but maybe all of my sources that are from Texas. Kind of just depends on how you want to do it, right? You can also pin it. That just means that you can't move it around. And of course, you could rename it, or you could potentially delete your card. All right, the last thing that I'm going to show you, that's not true. Second to last thing I'm going to show you is how you make like an image for a card. Okay, so there's kind of two ways you can do this. One, you could actually just straight up download the image. Like if I was on this website here and this was an actual image that I could download, I could just right click and save as, but it's not an image, right? This is saving the web page. So if you're going to deal with images or infographics or something like that and you want the image, then you have to do that. You also could do open in a new tab, and then you would have a link to it, and you could copy the link. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. So, new note card. This is going to be image. I'm going to title the image, and I'm labeling it an image. Again, I could also just label it and call it something like what is this here? Gosh, what do you even call it? Oh, figure one. And I've labeled my source here. That's this source. But when I'm in the direct quotation spot, I could put a hyperlink in there. I can format it. I can make it look all nice. I could put a YouTube video in here. But we're dealing with images right now. And like I said, if you open it up in a new tab, you could just copy and paste the URL. But in this case, this isn't actually an image. This is embedded into the PowerPoint. So I need to get a copy of this. So you're going to use what's called a snipping tool. If you're on a Windows computer, just open up the snipping tool. If you are on a Chromebook, there's a key command for it, and I forget what it is off the top of my head. I'm sure you could Google it, but you're going to snip it. And it's like Control-Shift-4 or something like that. So we take that snip and we snag it, and then we save that image. I'm just going to call this figure 1. You need to save it to your computer, and then back in NoodleTools, you're going to click Upload, choose the file. Here's my figure 1, and then you're going to click Send it to the server. That just sends it to NoodleTools servers. I don't know why it has to be there. I think they just the image needs to be online, not from your computer. So boom, I'm going to send it to the server. Now we have a URL for it, and we're going to click OK, and there is my image. And now I can paraphrase this image. I can put my original thinking for this image. I can tag it as an image, which I already have a tag for. I can tell the page number that it's coming from. So this was page 3. I've got an image card. And maybe I want to color it like my other image cards. Maybe I want to move it over there. Maybe I want to create a pile that is images. I'm going to add this to images as well. So I'm going to drag my pile over. Let's create right there. Okay, so here's the last thing I'm going to show you. This is called Detailed View, and I'm a big fan of Detailed View. I will say I think Tabletop's great for moving stuff around, for labeling it, but Detailed View is going to give you a nice list. And you can see here we've got a list of cards that are not piled. They're not placed anywhere. They might be tagged, right? They might be color-coded. They might have tags. It unfortunately doesn't show you the tags, and it does not show you the cues. So this view is a little bit limited. But if you click on the card, this is one of the reasons I like this view. If you click on the card, it brings up the information from the card, right? On Tabletop View, if I click the card, nothing. I have to double click it to open it. So this allows you to click your cards and see them. I did forget one way you could title a card is some people title the card based on the start of the quote. So if here's the quote, and you can see I've got more than one card selected, which is another thing of this view is I can pull up multiple cards. Any card that's being viewed has an I next to it. But I can also see which cards are categorized, and I can see what pile they're in, and I can hide those piles if I really want to. Or I can select all the cards in that pile. So very helpful stuff. Your teacher might also be having you do an outline, and NoodleTools does have a built-in outline program. But it's personally, I think it's a lot easier to outline just in like a blank Google Doc. So hopefully you found this stuff helpful. I think there's a lot here to do, and it's a great way to stay organized. It's digital, it's cloud-based, so it saves automatically. It's very simple, very straightforward, and of course, if you're keeping your sources properly in NoodleTools, remember, you need to have your source already in NoodleTools to be able to add a source here. But it's nice because it's real easy to say, look, it's this source here, and here's the information I'm getting from this source.